Coming up, a Sami dance festival goes virtual. Plus, the makeup of Congress could change with new district boundaries. We'll get a DC update with John Tsuda. I'm Mark Trahant. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from Indian Country Today.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. Working with award-winning professors, Cronkite students learn news reporting, social media, shooting and editing videos, and producing content for communications industries. Cronkite's 15 professional programs give students the opportunity to cover critical issues throughout the U.S. and beyond. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is Indian Country Today.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Trahant. The holidays, a time for family, a time to gather, and during a pandemic, that could mean trouble ahead. The Indian Health Service is encouraging tribal citizens to get booster shots this season. President Joe Biden recently announced steps to ensure 100 million eligible Americans who have not yet got booster shots to get one as soon as possible. IHS head Elizabeth Fowler recently spoke in Oakland, California, about the health organization's booster efforts. She says the agency only has one goal in mind.
Vaccination really is the best way to protect yourself, your family, your friends, your colleagues, your communities. And we really do want to reach community immunity, and that's really the only way to get there.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Native Americans and Alaska Natives have the highest vaccination rates in the country. Currently, IHS has administered 1.9 million COVID-19 vaccines. Apache elders are pushing members of Arizona's congressional delegation to save their sacred site, Oak Flat. Last Thursday, a group of elders from the San Carlos Apache Nation gathered in Phoenix at the Arizona Senator Mark Kelly's office. The group wants Oak Flat to be saved from being mined for copper. Specifically, the elders are urging Senator Kelly to support a bill in the Senate that would stop the mining. Sandra Rambler, an elder at the event, said, "My ancestors are buried at Oak Flat." Currently, the bill has not faced a vote, but has been referred to the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources. If the bill comes down to a vote, Senator Kelly, along with Senator Kristen Sinema, would be crucial swing votes to give the legislation momentum to move forward. Weighing in on this gathering at his Phoenix office, Kelly said, quote, "Mining is an important part of Arizona's history and a major contributor to our economy. I'm continuing to evaluate the environmental impacts of this and any project like it. I have met with and heard from leaders of the San Carlos Apache tribe, local elected officials, and folks on both sides of the issue." So far, Kelly has not made clear where he stands on supporting legislation to save Oak Flat. Grizzly bears in Montana could soon be hunted after being protected for 30 years. The state of Montana plans on asking the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to lift the threatened species protection in the northern part of the state. State wildlife officials would then have more flexibility to deal with bears that attack livestock and sometimes small people. Wildlife advocates say if the protections are lifted, it could lead to overhunting of the grizzly bears. The petition to remove the protections will be filed at a meeting between state wildlife commissioners on December 14th. Those commissioners would oversee any future hunting season for grizzlies. The request will go to the Interior Department, which oversees fish and wildlife. Conrad Lucero will spend the next 4 years in prison for sexual abuse. Lucero is a former governor of Laguna Pueblo in New Mexico. In March of 2019, he sexually abused a woman who was staying at his home. The 71-year-old man pled guilty to the charge and was sentenced last week. After he serves his time, Lucero will be on supervised release for 5 years and must register as a sex offender. New charges are being brought up on ousted Navajo Nation controller Pauline Clark. The complaint alleges the official misled the government to spend CARES Act funding with a confidence company, violating Title 17 of the nation's code. Additional complaints include obtaining a signature by deception, paying or receiving government funds for services not rendered, and falsification. Kirk avoided having additional testing reviewed by any Navajo health officials as required by Navajo law. Her claims misled and deceived officials into proving a contract for more than $3 million, Source New Mexico reports. The Navajo Nation voluntarily dismissed 2 cases against Kirk that would have gone to jury trial this month. Mexico City is celebrating 500 years of indigenous resistance with music and dancing. The dresses and masks of the folk dancers are an expression of the past. Indigenous people would dress up as European colonizers as a way to mock the way they dressed and danced. And dancers with worn-out clothes are meant to represent indigenous people. Mexico City's Secretary of Culture hosted the first great parade of costume dancers.
For Mexico City, in trying to understand history from a very different perspective, through the history of over 500 years of indigenous resistance, this was a long-standing dip. These costume dances are an exercise in resistance.
Nowadays, both dance styles have become a staple at events in Mexico. And those are the headlines for Indian Country Today. I'm Mark Trahan. Up next, we have a treat in store for you as we take a look at the Sami culture. This weekend, Sami dancers take to the screen for a virtual festival. The goal is to gather screen dance makers from all over Sapami and show the diversity in the Sami culture and dance. The festival will take place online in Yakmanov, December 11th and 12th. The festival manager is Liv Aria, and she joins us today. Welcome, Liv.
Thank you so much. Hello.
So what can we expect to see at this festival?
Well, I have gathered dance films from all over Sapmi, the indigenous people of Europe. And we have dance films from Sweden, Finland, and Norway. So it's very excited to see so many different screen dance films being made in different places up here.
Well, let's take a look at the festival trailer.
Låvda, Sapmi Screen Dance Festival. Screened online and coming to Jokkmokk Live 11th to 12th of December. Screen the festival through invisiblepeople.se/LAVDA by Sami dancers from all over Sapmi.
How can we watch this festival in the United States?
Well, it will be screened online through invisiblepeople.se/LAVDA. And the festival is completely for free. And we are also offering dance classes, and you can see the films themselves and also hear the artists present their films. So you will be able to see it both during this weekend, but it will also remain on the webpage for about 1 week, so you can see it in your own time.
Oh, exciting. What are some of the ways that you express yourself in this in the dance of Sami?
Well, in the history of the Sami culture, there are no proof of how maybe an indigenous dance may have looked like. But today we are many dancers in Sapmi that wants to express themselves and want to express our culture through our art dance. And this expression has this year turned out to become many different screen dance films. So, for example, personally, I have developed a dance film series about the 8 seasons that we have in the Sami culture, which lift up feelings and emotions and places in the Sami society. And I express this through dance. So this is just one example that you will see during the festival.
Excellent. What inspired you to dance?
Well, when I was little, I always dreamt of dancing. I saw a big production here in the north of Sweden, and I felt, wow, I would love to do this. And when I finally got the opportunity to dance, I felt like I really could express myself through movement in this very special art form. So it just had made me continue and eventually now expressing my culture through dance.
You know, it's funny because so many of folks in the United States think about Europe as a blank slate or really any part of the world. How do you express Sami culture to people who will be learning about it for the first time?
Well, we are indigenous people that traditionally is a traveling people. We have for many years worked with reindeers, reindeer herding, but also with fishing and other things close to the nature. But today, as any other people, we live as normal people in the society, but we have a long and big history that obviously affect us today, and something that we want to remain and keep alive. So, yeah, maybe like that.
Sami are also Arctic people, and how are some of the networks in the Arctic, and maybe express something about that?
It's tricky because Sapmi is quite big and is across 4 different countries, obviously. So our languages, for example, goes across the Swedish, Norwegian, Finnish, and Russian, while we have different Sami languages traveling like this, if that makes sense. So we try our best to keep the communication through across the borders, but it's also tricky because the country limited traveling and things like that sometimes.
Well, in fact, that's actually kind of where I was going, because that's something where you share with other Arctic cultures, the crossing of borders and being able to keep a culture alive in many different forms in different countries.
Yeah, that is a tricky part and a big trauma in the history as well. But I'm hoping to see a development in the future, obviously. So, yeah.
How is it encouraging young people to take part in both culture and dance and express themselves?
Well, like here in Sweden, I try to give a lot of different kind of workshops, and we're doing also children productions which are made to tell about the history of Sápmi and different fairy tales from there, to inspire them to keep on telling the stories, making games out of these stories. But by making, for example, a screen dance festival like this, we hope to encourage that the different types of expressions will come up from the young people as well, and feel like they are welcome to express their culture in whatever way they want to do it. It's okay to keep on developing and keep on making new things, like a screen dance festival that we never had before in Sápmi.
That is always an exciting part, is how do you add to cultural experiences in a new generation and get people excited about it? Just because it's new doesn't mean it's not traditional.
Exactly. Like we obviously can't remember everything that have happened, and we can't prove how something have looked, but by experimenting and experience different things, why not create new things that are not new? Who knows?
In terms of audience, what does success look like for the festival?
Well, we are keeping the festival in English, so we are hoping people from all over the world will take part of this, and hoping that the festival will grow and maybe come back another year. So we're hoping as that as many as possible will be able to take part, to see it, take dance classes, and get to know a little bit about the Sami culture.
As we've done so many of these virtual things because of the pandemic, has there been folks talking about trying to do both next year, or how is it working for kind of the future with this?
Well, actually, already this year, we are having a festival live in Jokkmokk as well. So the people who lives here, it's not a huge city, we are only 5,000 people here, are welcome to see the festival live, but we are also screening it at the same time. So this idea kind of came up because of the pandemic, that we will be able to give art even though everyone can't go outside and see it live or can't travel. So we're hoping that this festival can continue to be both live and online for those who can't come here physically.
There's so much to learn in that regard. I look forward to it. What excites you most about the week ahead?
For me personally, I'm really looking forward to finally meet all these dancing colleagues that are coming here to present their films. We have 5 premieres of different screen dance films, which is very exciting. And I'm looking forward just to get to know everyone properly, because we never had the opportunity before to meet in real life and to work together and to do something real, not only over camera like this. So it feels very good to together doing something and also strengthening each other in our own dance expression.
Are there dances that are cross-border now?
Not for this time. We have films from both Norway and Finland, but unfortunately the creators can't come here for this festival. But we have festival dancers and creators coming from Sweden.
Thank you so much, Liv.
Oh, thank you for having me.
When we come back, we'll take a look at the district system and the political scene with John Tsuda. As usual, there's a lot going on in Washington, D.C., from redrawing congressional districts to changing the number of justices on the Supreme Court. Joining us again to talk about all this is John Tsuda III. He is a regular contributor to Indian Country Today. John has worked with the Senate Indian Affairs Committee, and he was also a former Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs. He has a lot of experience. Today, John is a partner with Navigators Global, which is a company that provides political services to several industries, including tribes. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Mark. It's always great to visit with you. Exciting things happening in DC.
There is. Last week, we talked Big Sky with Holly, and I wanted to kind of follow up and flip that around and talk from the Republican side. Redistricting is always an interesting process every 10 years. And in some states, Republicans are keen to change the rules. In other states, Democrats are keen to change the rules. And in other states, it's completely independent. It's really an interesting mix. But one of the ones that we talked about is the growth in the number of Native Americans in the Congress. And one of those is Representative Yvette Harrell from New Mexico. And that's a district that could be dramatically changed by reapportionment.
Right. As you mentioned, the states have become increasingly every 10 years, and now it's sometimes happening more frequently than that. The state legislators are really trying to exercise this, this piece of authority they have that fits into the larger U.S. constitutional framework, and that's deciding the districts that representatives are elected to. So they do like to flex their muscle. And when they control, the legislature, and in a number of states, there's complete control, a governor and the legislature controlled by the same party. They're often asked by the national parties to assist them in trying to, squeeze out every little bit of extra, votes they can get to get members elected for their party. so, in a state like New Mexico, that can be dramatic. There's not that many members, and the districts can be redrawn in a way that really can benefit one party.
And it's interesting because if you look at the whole landscape of the races, more than 90% are races that are not even competitive for that very reason.
That's true. And this is a personal opinion of mine, and I'm sure colleagues of mine on both sides of the aisle would disagree. But I really don't like gerrymandering. I think that the country at large, and I think Indian country does better, when you have more competitive districts. When the political parties have to actually compete with each other for ideas in a district, that benefits everybody. And I think for tribes, since we usually make up a relatively small amount of the electorate in any district, that really plays to the strength of the tribes. If members, when they're campaigning, have to pay attention to all the ideas out there and not just a homogenous group of people, then that really benefits us.
Well, in fact, if you look at history, the whole idea of districts is not that old a concept. Before that, people used to run at large from states.
Right. And if you look at other countries, like in England, they don't have a proportional representation that we do. They have districts that are drawn up really along historical lines, and some of them have thousands fewer voters than other ones. At least here, we try to keep some proportional number of voters in a district.
One of the districts that is likely to change is actually drawn by an independent body, and that's in California, where the potential Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, represents. The new district is still favoring Republicans by just a couple of points, but how significant could that kind of thing be in an election year? And we talked earlier about speakers who have lost their jobs.
Well, that does, make it a little more perilous for a guy, like Minority Leader McCarthy. You run into this, politicians run into this all the time, and even tribal politicians run into it. When it looks like you're spending too much time out of your district looking at national issues and not paying attention to what the people that actually vote for you want, that can actually cause you some trouble at home. And several, as you mentioned, even speakers of the House have been unelected, really because of that sort of view from their voters.
And you're exactly right that it's exactly the same in Indian country, where people get involved in a national organization and they go back home and people are, what are you doing with your time?
Right. Yeah. We want you to pay attention to us.
I want to ask another question, and that is, again, Big Sky. The Supreme Court has 9 members. It's had 9 members for more than 100 years, but it's not in the Constitution, and it can be changed. And suddenly, now that folks are seeing a 6-3 court, they're saying, well, we need more members, particularly Democrats.
Right. Well, it seems to come up whenever one party is perceived to have gotten more members on the bench than would, quote, be fair. I'm not sure what what fair necessarily is, but I guess my thought on that, really, and it's sort of my opinion, though, is that the American people have become pretty comfortable with the structure of the court as it is now, regardless of which way it swings politically. I certainly think that before any party or any president tried to pack the court, as was proposed 100 years ago, and add new members, that they might really run afoul of public opinion on that and could really suffer at the polls. And that might end up being a short-term, growth in the court.
Another Big Sky issue I want to ask you about is most of our stories in the media are about contentious issues in Congress. But this week we had some pretty significant deals in Congress where the machinery worked.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, everybody works off their own incentives, and sometimes it seems like the gears are jammed. But when the various incentives on both sides of the aisle come together, things can break loose. And interesting that they can find unique ways to get around what seem to be roadblocks. But I think that speaks to our democracy at large. At the end of the day, everybody wants to do what's right and not harm the country.
Well, and the extension of the debt ceiling is a classic example of that, because you have on one side, we're going to vote against this, but we're going to let you do it in a way that you can win.
Right. Well, if you dig into the meat of it, sometimes people think that an issue like that, there is broad support for it, but then they try to attach other things to it that they don't want, and they feel like if I vote for it, I'm going to get used, right, on other things that I don't support, and that gives them some hesitancy. So really, often what you find with these deals is they have managed to pare it down so that people can vote for the thing they want to vote for, but not get locked into other things that they don't want to support.
What do you think the next step is for the Senate when it comes to moving through considering Biden's Build Back Better bill?
I think they have a long ways to go, and really the tough part of it is on the Democrat side of the aisle. You have a few senators who are considered moderates. We don't say that word a lot these days for either party, but they come from states that again, we were talking earlier about competing for votes. I mean, they have to pay attention to the broad swath of their electorate, not just a sort of a minority of them. So they're watching some of these things. I think that at the end of the day, they probably will get something done, but it'll be pared back from what the president's original proposal was, and probably pared back significantly in some ways.
It's an interesting narrative that people don't like to think about horse trading, but that's as old as the Republic, and things change all the time.
I have to find common ground on it. When you have a bill like that has a lot of different pieces to it, then you end up haggling over the different pieces, and it often comes out looking not quite like you thought it was going to.
But it does happen. John, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Thank you for watching. For all the latest news, go to IndianCountryToday.com. I'm Mark Trahant.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run. Standing
This is Indian Country Today.